Thank you, Senator Conroy.
Stay with us, Sterlo. It's been a long trip, mate.
Thank you.
When will a new CEO be appointed?
Bet you weren't expecting that one.
Perhaps if I might take that one, if you don't mind, Senator. The board selection committee has completed its assessment process and advice is now with the Minister in relation to the matter. I think it's fair to say we would hope that the matter will be concluded in the next few weeks.
Why has it taken so long, Mr Murdoch?
There's been an extensive search process, both nationally and internationally. That has taken some time to seek a candidate of suitable quality, Senator.
And are you able to assure the committee that not having its CEO has not impacted on CASA's ability to meet its objectives?
Senator, I can only comment that since the departure of Mr McCormick in August, I think the organisation's been in very good hands with Mr Farquharson.
Okay. Which group are most accurately CASA's key stakeholders, air operators or the flying public? That's
excuse me, Terry Farquharson, acting Director of Aviation Safety. We are responsible through the Minister and the Parliament to the people of Australia. We supervise closely the participants in the industry and we work closely with them to ensure compliance and safe behaviour.
okay. Well, how have the flying public assured that CASA will always focus on their safety over the naturally more complex concerns of aviation operators?
The processes by which we assess participants in the industry guard the interests of the travelling public.
Was it still the case that CASA has been asked to identify $12 million in savings to industry within the agency?
I'm sorry, Senator, I didn't hear that one.
Sorry, is it still the case that CASA has been asked to identify $12 million in savings to industry within your portfolio?
That's correct.
Can I refer to the one saving identified by CASA, and you may have heard it's been mentioned already today, Part 21. Can I ask which additional countries, and I think it may have got some information earlier today, Mr Murdoch, you probably...
We did.
But for the purpose of mutual recognition in relation to aircraft airworthiness. So I think we got that list earlier, but do you have it handy, Mr Farquhar?
Mr Boyd will be able to assist us here, sir.
Senator, I haven't got the list in front of me, but I think your question referred to some savings that were identified.
Well, I'm asking about which countries have we, under a particular one, 21?
That are listed as preferred countries. We have...
That are now recognised by Australia for the purpose of mutual recognition,
yes.
Which has been done as a saving.
That particular exercise was not part of that savings that for that particular point that you're making, Senator. That Part 21 provision that claimed the saving was actually against defects that were being assessed against various defects with an aircraft. So the fact the saving wasn't against the provisions for the recognised countries, it was actually another part of 21.
Well, could you estimate could you explain to the committee how those savings have been calculated? You're finding less defects or you're looking for less defects?
No, it was a mechanism allowing operators and maintenance control organisations to be able to manage the defects in a manner that was both safe but also in a manner that was more effective, Senator.
And what was that process change?
Perhaps I could call on our Executive Manager Standards to give you more technical detail,
Yep,
Senator.
that'd be great.
Mr Nicholas Ward, the Acting Executive Manager of Standards Division. Thank you for the question, Senator. In relation to the cost saving that you're inquiring about, the amendment was made to Part 21 to provide the operators with greater opportunity and flexibility to manage the deferral of defects on their aircraft. The deferral of those defects in all cases needs to be assessed against the appropriate design and certification standards for the aircraft. What it did is introduce some additional flexibility that the operators didn't have and would, in other circumstances, have required them to revert to CASA to get that approval.
So they don't have to tell you anymore that they've done it?
No, what they have to do is defer the defect in accordance with a process and procedure and make the engineering assessment to the design standard that's applicable to the deferral of that defect.
It's unfortunately late at night, so I'm just not quite following exactly what that means in English.
Okay, Senator. There are a number of mechanisms that allow an operator to defer a defect on an aircraft.
So what does defer a defect mean? I mean, a defect is still a defect. What you mean is defer the repairs to a defect.
That's correct, Senator. Defer the repair of the defect. And in some cases, the manufacturer will provide pre-approved documentation that will allow you to defer the repair of the defect to a later point in time. And in other cases, the deferral of the defect to a later point in time can be justified through engineering analysis of the defect to the design standard for the aircraft.
Okay, so this is a paperwork issue that allows you to defer repairs to defects.
That's correct, Senator.
And so currently you require them to repair the defect? They don't have access to this pre-approved paperwork?
No, they had access to some of the pre-approved paperwork, but what the change to the legislation did was introduce or allow another mechanism that they previously didn't have access to, so it gave them some greater flexibility. And what was the other mechanism? That was to allow them to do the assessment against the design standard. Previously, they would have had to have approached CASA for an exemption to operate the aircraft.
Right. Okay, I might come back to that in a second. I just want to come back to your answer, Mr. Boyd. Did you provide us with the answer to 74? Answer to question 74 from the last estimates?
Sorry.
Because my reading of that answer is the exact opposite to the answer you've just given us, which is that it wasn't part of the savings, whereas my reading of this answer is it is part of the savings.
Senator, we don't appear to have in our packs question, excuse me, 274. Could you just read it?
It's a long answer, that's all. The Civil Aviation Safety Authority is progressing initiatives to change a number of regulatory and service delivery processes to minimise the regulatory compliance under administrative burden. These initiatives include amendments to Part 141 of the Civil Aviation to reduce the complexity of flight training organisation approvals, amendments to CASA Part 61, amending CASA Part 21. So you actually state that this is part of this, and then you just told the committee a moment ago it was not part of this.
No, the part that we did amend that was Part 21, Senator, as Mr. Hill has just explained, to do with the defect referral process. That is part of Part 21.
So maybe as I said, maybe it's late and I'm just a little bit slower than I should be. But you're saying this is not part of a saving to industry measure?
What I'm saying, Senator, is that CASA Part 21 was part of the industry savings measures, but it was the provision within Part 21 was the provision that Mr. Ward's just explained.
So it is part of the savings
Yes.
measures?
Yes.
So which was the part that wasn't part of the savings measures?
The part to do with the recognition of other approvals from overseas, Senator.
That was done, nothing to do with this?
No, it had nothing to do with the savings measures.
Okay, thank you.